Hey, hello all. Thank you so much for joining our NHRD live series. So, before kickstarting this session, I would like to give a quick introduction about myself. Hi, I'm Shivashri, working as a HR business partner in CSG, and I'm also part of NHRD Young Advisory Board. So, in the panel today, we have Smita Saha, who's area HR Director, Middle East and Africa, AstraZeneca, and also we have Shalini Natraj, who's a Global HR Head, GSE, HR Strategy and Fleet, AP Moeller Musk. So today's session format is quite new and interesting because our audience can join us live on a video and ask questions directly to our speakers. So please do watch our chat box. We'll be posting the link. All you need to is just click on the link and join us over video to ask your questions. So also, I would like to remind the theme of our discussion is women, career, and enablement. So I would request the audience to ask the question which is relevant to the topic so it does not dilute the conversation. So before getting started with the question, let's get started with a quick rapid round question with Smita. Hi Smita, what's one thing that we cannot find about you in any of your social media profiles?
That's a good one, Sivashri. Am I audible? Yeah. Okay. So I would think it's very important for a leader, whether woman or otherwise, to be known for something. And I think what I pride myself is that I'm known as a person who helps people develop and truly invests in the careers of people around me. So I think that would be my biggest calling card.
Thank you so much, Smita. And hi, Shalini. We would love to hear about your inputs as well. The one thing that we cannot find about you in any of your social media profiles.
That's actually interesting. My social media profile is so filled with all things fun, but I deeply stand for silence and mindfulness, and that is something I've kept so private that nobody will ever believe if I said I believe in silence. So that is something that nobody will find on my social media.
Great, Shalini. So again, to mention to all our audience, uh, yeah, I do see there are certain comments coming in. So the first live series where our audience can join us live with our speakers to ask any questions. So feel free to join us and shoot up your questions to our speakers. And please do click on the link which is posted in our chat box so that you can join us. Okay, so while the questions coming in, we did have some of the questions filled by women professionals who have already shared some of the questions with us. So first question, let's take it from Narmada. So why is it difficult for women to break the glass ceiling to transition her career from the mid to senior level? So Shalini or Smita, anyone can take it up.
Okay, I can, Smita, should I go first? There are many answers for this question that you'll see on Google. So I thought I'll talk about my own personal experience and how I did it. Maybe that is something you won't find on my social media too. I feel like many times what happens is we stop our own development. Let me start with 50% of the times it's my own interest, my own capabilities that stops me from growing. And then there is also the ecosystem and the organization, right? One of the things that we're seeing in most of our organization is women start their career really, really well, and then they have other priorities. Men have too, but most times women actually choose to pick one thing, like family, like kids, and then career takes a step back. And hence we've seen a drop in women at the demography where they have to become middle management or senior leaders, where there is a drop. And if I can go also into advice for these women, it's about choosing multiple priorities and not sticking to one. And it's easier said than done. I've done it to some extent, not to a large extent, but it's about pausing and saying that career and my development is as important as my family's, my kids, and my husband's. So I'm going to have an ecosystem around me personally that also supports my career. And if we don't have an entire village supporting us to make our career happen, it's never going to happen. So the one thing I would say, and then hand it over to Smita, is to say, don't think you're in this alone. Ensure that you have a really good ecosystem around you, support function around you that supports you. So that way you get married, you move, you relocate, it's easy for you to get back and continue with your career. Smita?
Thank you, Shalini. I would really say that a ceiling is inside your head, honestly. And if you believe in your potential and you truly believe in yourself, then you owe it to yourself to grow to your full potential. And so a lot of it is actually self-belief. And it is also the confidence and the the self-talk you do, which keeps you going in your journey. I totally agree with what Shalini mentioned, that, build your own ecosystem of support. Don't be afraid to ask for help. One of the things I find is a lot of us believe we must be superwoman, which is ridiculous. Yes, there are things I'm good at, and there are also things I'm very bad at. And it's fine, and you should build that ecosystem around you if you genuinely want to go forth with your career. But I think it's really important that we step aside a little bit from the self-doubt and encourage ourselves. I think we need to be our own biggest cheerleaders. A lot of us sort of wait around for someone else to point out to us that we're great, but hello, we actually have that education and all the required capabilities to be where we are. Just believe in yourself and move forward. I think that's really the biggest one. So having a positive self-talk, having the confidence, building an ecosystem around yourself, and going forth with that with the full belief is what I would say.
Sure, Smita and Shalini. So before we jump into a quick serious question, again, one other rapid question. So this time we can take this up with Shalini. So Shalini, if you could time travel to the past, what is the one thing, you would like to change?
In myself, Shivashri, time travel. Okay. I will go to what Smita just said, self-doubt, right? You might look at us today, and some days I've been told I'm a superwoman. Some days I've been told that I'm not. And that's all told by me. I stand in front of a mirror, and there are days I feel great. There are days I don't. So if I could change one thing, is to start my life as a child, as an adult, believing that I am who I am. And there are some things I do well, some things I don't, but this is who I am, and to accept myself exactly the way I am. And that's something I didn't do really well before, so that's something I want to change if I could.
That's awesome, Shalini. That's awesome to hear. Yeah. Okay. So we have a question from one of our audience, Harshita. So why is that choice to not rapidly accelerate, but plan your career as you move, consider stuck under a ceiling?
Can I take that? I would actually say it's a little bit how we view it. It's important to plan your career, and that's not only about women, that's about everybody. You must have a plan for your career. Otherwise, it's a little bit like Alice in Wonderland, right? You go wherever it takes you, and it may not be where you want it to be in the first place. So I think it's very important to have purpose. And it's a good thing to sit down and actually build that purpose for yourself. What is it that you're out to achieve? And then build a path towards it. And I genuinely believe that if you're clear in your head about what you are trying to go for, you will find the avenues, the opportunities, and the support around you to make it happen. So actually planning your career is a good thing. I don't think it's anything about being stuck anywhere. I think it's good to have a plan and not allow things to just happen like that.
And Shivashri, if I can just add, and maybe this is a personal thing too, and Smita, I'm sure you've gone through this. There are years in my life where I've been super ambitious and then planned it, and I had to be X before this age and Y before this age. And there have been years where I've said, I have other priorities, and I'm not ambitious, and I don't want to become the next CIO or CFO or whatever it is that you want to be. And then I've taken a step back, and I've done really well in my job as to where I am, but I've also focused on other things. So while you have a planned career, it's not about I need to grow every day. It's about pausing. It's about being careful and structured about how you do your career, but also ensuring that you have other things in life that you're also enjoying, not career taking over everything.
I can see that there are a couple of questions for me.
Yes, yes, Smita. So the next question is for you, which says that, hi, Smita. So you said you take pleasure in developing professionals. Would love to hear from a leader of your stature as to what are some of the challenges you find most people stuck in, and what has been your most common advice. I think this is a brilliant question.
Well, I think it also generalizes a bit, and it's important to understand that careers are pretty personal. And um, when you look at it from a very general perspective, I think the most important thing is having confidence and having the capabilities and skills and being willing to push your own personal boundaries. I think one of the other things that I've seen a lot of women leaders, women employees do is staying within a box of comfort. Because it's hard sometimes, and given that we are balancing several things in your life, you just don't want too many unknown elements, so we tend to be a little bit risk averse. And I personally believe that it's not a bad thing to try something new and to see if you like it. So my biggest advice to most professionals would be step beyond your comfort zone, try doing something new. If you're really not feeling very comfortable, try it in a small way, like a project, rather than a full career change. But do it, because that's really the way you will grow, to understand your own capabilities and to sort of push yourself further.
Thank you, Smita. And I think we have an audience. Okay, who wants to join, but I think unfortunately she left. Okay, so next question we have here for you, Smita. So how do we sensitize the larger work ecosystem to let being vulnerable be a done thing?
That's a very interesting one. I genuinely believe that being vulnerable is a good thing, because if you are going to be vulnerable, then you come across as genuine. Because I think we are now gone past the time when we said that leadership has a persona, and this is the persona in which all leaders must be. What we are now talking about is leadership can be there in anyone, in any role, in any personality, in any circumstances. So it actually is a way you hold yourself and the way you think. So I would actually say that to be a leader, you must look at it, what is the best leader that you can be. And sometimes that means being true to yourself and being confident to be vulnerable, I think. And it's a real thing. Today it's not possible for one person to know everything. It is just not possible for one person to be an expert in everything. We live in very complex times, and the issues we deal with are very complex. So getting over that whole piece that, oh my goodness, if I say I don't know, how does it look? I'll tell you honestly, it looks like you're real. It looks like somebody I can relate to, and somebody I would believe in more, because I think this is a real person and not some superwoman standing in front of me. So I think being vulnerable is actually not a bad thing. It certainly strengthens you as a leader and a person.
And maybe, Smita, if I can just also add to that, right? Like there are times it's also about how a leader reacts when somebody is vulnerable to you, which sets the tone for everybody else on the team, right? Like say somebody comes up and says, I don't know. And then you're like, what are you saying? It's your job to know. Or the way you react to it then allows other people to be vulnerable or not. And sometimes as leaders, we're not always very conscious about the tone that we're setting. So if you're an employee wondering if you should be vulnerable, like Smita said, 100% know exactly, who and why you're being vulnerable. It's not about being vulnerable at all times, but about ensuring that you're being true to yourself. But if you're a leader, act the talk, be vulnerable, so that way it sets the tone for others also.
True, I agree.
Thank you, Smita and Shalini. So I think we have Shilpa here. Please go ahead, Shilpa.
Hi, hello Shivashri, hi Smita, hi Shalini.
Hi there.
I'm really excited to be a part of this session today, and I was listening to all of you. All of you are just amazing. And Smita, while you were talking about, you develop professionals, right? So what really caught my attention, and I really was intrigued to understand that one thing I think most of us are caught between, caught in the grind, is that managing emotions. So I'm sure you as a leader, you have had such situations where there is, managing emotions as well as focusing, emotional intelligence, social quotient, everything else around you, right? And also there's so much of information. So one could definitely get overwhelmed with so many things to really manage. You as a leader, how do you think you manage everything, and what would be your top 3 learnings or something that you would like us to know as budding professionals, that how do you think we should be able to manage? There's so much of things to manage, right? So what would be your suggestion for us?
Stay focused. First of all, stay focused. I think I spoke earlier about having a plan for yourself, and I think that's really important, Shilpa. Take a moment and think about what do you want to be. And honestly, those are very different answers, and not everybody anymore wants to have the same kind of a future in the next 5 years. I see myself as this or as that. It doesn't matter, and build yourself up with experiences, rather than positions, because when you look at it in terms of experiences, it becomes much broader, and you can actually broaden your canvas and bring in a lot more richer aspects of your life, and look at it in a more integrated way. I don't think there can be anybody who's a very happy person who has succeeded in one part of their life and not in the other. You will always feel like, I wish I had. So it's a lot better to have a realistic picture of what you're trying to achieve over here. And if you say, for the next 5 years, I dedicate myself to do, I'm super ambitious about my career, go for it. All the best. And I really wish you well. And if you say that, look, for the next 1 year, I want to do something slightly different because I want to pick up a new capability and a skill. I want to go for the extra class outside. So therefore, I'm going to focus on that bit of my life. That's fine too. And there are no right or wrong answers. But what is important is clarity. What I feel is that it's most important to have that clarity. So get hold of a person, a friend, a colleague, a boss, I don't know, anybody who you feel confident to actually have that discussion with, and seek that clarity for yourself, and keep doing it, not once, but often enough. Maybe once a year, maybe once in a couple of years, when you feel you need to have that, clarity for yourself, have that discussion with this person, with a buddy or a mentor, whatever you want to call the person. And it will help you to stay focused. And honestly, when you start realizing I'm achieving whatever it is that I set out to do, you will start feeling much better, and you will have a much more fulfilling career.
And if I can, Smita, just tag in one thing, Shilpa, that's helped me also is sometimes, like we started this conversation, we believe we're Wonder Woman, but we also believe we have to do everything for our career. I'm a big believer of outsourcing. I'm a big believer of somebody else talking about me in a good way when I'm not in the room. So how do you create this board of directors, if you will, or a network that knows you and can talk about you when you're not there, which means you don't have to be there everywhere. You can focus on your priorities. Also know that somebody else, 4 or 5 people in the organization, are taking care of you and taking care of your capabilities, but also taking care of your development and talking you up in these conversations, right? So figure out, and this is one thing that I do, and you can think of this, like when I'm driving back home, I always think about my day and think about what is that one thing I could have delegated it to somebody else that would have given me time to focus on something that's a priority to me. Every single day, I have that one thing that I shouldn't have done, that I actually did and spent that time I could have spent somewhere else. So just reflecting on yourself helps you understand what are some things that you can delegate and have other people help you with.
Very well said. These were amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you so much, Smita and Shalini. It was amazing.
Great to see you, Shilpa. Great to see you on video.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
Thank you, Shilpa. Okay. So I think we have next question from Aarti. Hello, a question to the panel. How were your first 5 years as an HR different from how it is as a leader now?
I don't think it's particularly different. I don't think so. I've always been I've always been pretty outspoken. I've always been high energy, and I'm honestly, the biggest thing that I look for is I'm having fun. If I'm not having fun, then there's something wrong and I need to do something else. So for me, the barometer is that, are you having fun? Are you enjoying yourself? Are you enjoying the work you're doing? Do you feel like you're adding value? Is it making you feel fulfilled? Those are important questions for me. And if that happens, then I'm cool. And that hasn't changed, honestly. It's still the same. It's the same same lipstick for myself.
Same.
Thanks,
Same.
Smita.
Exactly the same, Smita. I always ask myself, am I happy today? And sometimes the answer is no. It's not about being happy every single day, but as long as you know that you control that, I think it's great. But the other thing that has changed, and Smita, maybe you'll agree, HR is an industry, right? When I started many years ago, I had to force myself to have a seat at the table. Now I feel like, I feel great that many leaders have become HR. And that's where we want to go. It isn't about a job. It's about leaders having to rise up and take care of their teams and coach their teams. And I think as an industry, we've become a whole lot better to take care of our people, which makes my job as an HR leader so much more happier. I have more happy days now than I've had when I was first time in my career.
Thank you, Shalini and Smita. So here we have Mercy to ask her next question. Hi, Mercy.
Hey, Mercy.
Hello, hi Smita, hi Shalini, hi Sivashri. Really nice to be with you all in this session and ask a question. So here's my question. So to anybody, Smita or Shalini. So have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And if you have, what are some of the action items that you really take, or how do you really overcome that? Because sometimes I see that imposter syndrome really holds us back from what we can achieve or what we are capable of. So if you have to give an advice to growing young professionals or anybody from your own very own experience, if you can just share something about it, please.
That's an interesting one you've said, Mercy. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I have indulged in that level of self-doubt that I should have that. But yeah, there have been moments where I have wondered whether whether I'm up to what I'm trying to do. But I've been blessed because when I started out in my career, my parents were very ambitious for me. And after I got married, my husband has joined that bandwagon and he's extremely ambitious for me. So even if I want to take it easy and have fun, I think there are too many people around here who don't want me to have that much of fun. They want me to get back to what it is that I'm doing. But on a lighter note, on a serious note, I would think it's really important to self-awareness is a very important thing. And as an HR people, we continually talk about knowing yourself and taking that time to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at. Nobody is always ready for every assignment thrown at them. It can never be. You will always learn. Every time if there is a job change or there is a promotion or there's a rotation, you will learn and you will be a little bit out of sorts initially for the first maybe a year. Before you settle in and you figure out the rhythm of that place and the rhythm of the work that you do. It's important at that time to stay focused on what is it that you are good at and remind yourself of that. And I think that to me is a big one. A lot of people talk about, positive self-talk, about, reminding yourself what you're good at, surrounding yourself with people who are positive thinkers and who are supportive of you. Making sure your language itself is not negatives or self-deprecating, and give yourself the respect that you deserve. Honestly, if you don't respect yourself, who else will? So I think all of that does count, and all of that is very important. And I would just throw in the bit about know yourself. I think as HR people, we always start with that, right? Saying that, do you know yourself well enough? All our programs start with, who are you? Who am I? All of that stuff. It's serious, huh? That actually opens up windows in your head and makes you realize these are 5 things I'm great at. These are 5 things I need to develop further. Whatever it is I'm doing, I strengthen accordingly. And that might get you the self-belief to move forward beyond an imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Smita.
Yes, question, and maybe I'll share a few practical things that I might have done. Let me start with an example, right? The first time I was invited to be on a board of a company, unfortunately, so it was a diversity position, right? And then somebody said, oh, we need a woman. And then they found me and whatever. And then I was there. I thought I was there because I had merit. But of course, many people didn't. And because of that, it gave me a self-doubt. So every time I would enter this boardroom, I would not take the seat somewhere near the table. I would go somewhere back and sit. In my head, I'm thinking I'm not worth this seat, so I'm going to go somewhere. What happened? Everybody in that room treated me exactly that way. So we sometimes believe our self-doubt is only internal, that nobody gets to see it. But every single person who's interacting with you can hear your self-doubt in the way you walk, in the way you talk, in the way you feel. So knowing, like Smita said, being self-aware is important. Also that you're influencing how other people treat you. And that is a super unfair place to be in, right? And we all have doubts, but if other people start treating us that way, then it becomes double. So then it's important to be self-aware that, yes, I have a few doubts. I'm going to build my capability, but I believe I earned this position for the right reasons, and then I'm going to do a good job about it. So just be aware that every time you doubt yourself, you're giving permission for other people to doubt you, and you never want to do that. The second thing I do, which is very sneaky, but also very practical, is in my Outlook, I have a folder called Great. And it's called Great. It sits there. It's been in my career all my life. And every time I get an appreciation email, I file it into that. I don't delete it. I file it into it, because there are days when I need validation. And I know I might not get it from an external world every second that I need it. So then I create a space where I can go and get validation for things I'm great at. Because sometimes when you have self-doubt, you might not have that at the top of your mind. Or you have a journal that talks about all the things that you're great at. And you read it, you stand in front of the mirror, you tell yourself you're great, you walk away, do a great job, right? So what I'm saying is sometimes if it doesn't come naturally, it should. If it doesn't, create an artificial way of getting that validation. You quickly get through that moment, and then you're great again. Does that make sense, Mercy?
Absolutely, completely, Shalini. Thank you so much. I think I've started my journey towards this. I have a praise list of my own, and just like you said, I have a diary that I maintain. I put my important notes. So I've started the journey, and it has actually helped me. So thank you so much, both Smita and Shalini. You shared some great insights with me. Thanks, Sivashri and NHRD, for the opportunity. See you all. Bye-bye.
Good seeing you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mercy. Awesome. Okay, we have the next question from Gautam Shetty. So, how do you think men can support? Okay, I think there is Siji who have joined us over video. Okay, so Siji, please go ahead.
Hi, Smita. Hi, Shalini. Thanks a lot,
Hi,
Sivashri.
how are you?
Hi. Doing well, and hope you're doing good too. I have a question to both of you. Maybe I would like to hear out from you on being a people leader, right? How do you keep a right balance between addressing the employee needs and also taking care of the organization needs? And my question is specific to scenarios where you have to let go of employees due to different scenarios, be it performance or be it the organization need. So, how do you then make the right choice? What are the internal conflicts that you go through? So, just wanted a view on that from both of you.
That's a good point, Shiji. And I would say actually that this is not something that you can work on the last day that you need to take that call, but it's actually a philosophy you work with. And when I earlier said that I pride myself, and my calling card really is about building people and building capabilities and careers, and that's what I mean, isn't it? That you have to learn to enable your employees to add value to themselves. And that's the most important thing. And times can change and things can change, and there is always a context to it. But how you navigate your organization and your employees through something like this is the critical piece, isn't it? So in my view, all of this actually goes back a lot more. It goes back into building credibility. Building credibility with all your employees about what is it that you stand for and what is it that your organization stands for. And then whatever it is, good or bad, they are usually riding the wave with you. And if you enable them to ride the wave with you, then nothing is a surprise. But if you're going to get into a parent-teacher mode where you are telling them, then you will be in this awkward situation of how do I deal with the guilt of it all. Whereas if you are open about what's happening good and what's happening not so good, and they can see it, I think the writing is usually on the wall. You'll be surprised. Most times people already know what's happening and what's coming, and they are already making their own personal plans and thoughts, and they probably also understand what is right for the future and where they stand in the scheme of things. So to me, rather than getting into the nitty-gritties of how you do it and what you do, I think there's a lot that can be said in that space, and this is not the topic of discussion today. But what I say to you is that work on your personal credibility and your organization's relationship with your employees. Treat them like adults, take them on the journey, let them understand what's good and what's not so good, and what's in the future, and how they can build their capabilities to be valuable in the future. And they will automatically understand when things are not happening exactly as they wish, because it will be very obvious and there are no surprises in it. The whole goal is to take away the surprise element, isn't it?
And Shiji, if I can just add one thing, unfortunately, we've all as HR people experienced that, right? One of the things that has helped me, one thing is exactly what Smita said, right? It's about core philosophy and who you are and what credibility you've built. The second one that I've always asked myself is, what do I control and what do I not? There are times when these organization decisions happen, which are important to do. It's because of customers' revenue, whatever it is. And I don't have a control right now on this happening or not, which means I move past that decision. And what I control is how I handle this conversation with my employees. What I control is how respectful I can be. What I control is how do I support them as they go through this difficult phase in their life. So, and this is an advice for any dilemma that we are in. It's really, really important for us to not get bogged down too much by things that you don't control. There are days when you can control these decisions and you should step forward for it. If there are days when you don't, then you pick and choose what you want to influence. And wherever you can influence, do a bloody good job of it and ensure that you treat people with love and respect. And that's your credibility. That is what you stand for, right? And they will all understand this. Shiji, I hope that makes sense.
It does, Shalini. Thanks a lot. And thank you, Smita, as well. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. I think there are some lovely comments that have come in on the chat box, and I really like them. This bit about empathy is very important for men to be able to support women. I think I would agree. In fact, I think your biggest cheerleader is probably the men in your family and the men in your team as well. And let's not for a moment imagine that women in the workplace is a subject for women alone. It's actually a subject for everybody, because you want to have diversity of points of views and perspectives and experiences, and all of that is required. And then, it's a value for the whole organization. I also like this bit where they talk about women need to be assertive in expressing the support. And I think earlier Shalini began with this point earlier, where she talked about having your own personal ecosystem, and I so totally endorse that. And it says over here, many women box themselves in stereotyped women roles and try to do everything on their own. And I think that's a little bit, again, Shalini, you mentioned earlier, right? What is it that you can delegate? And, ask for help. And that's something that I keep saying, that, don't imagine that you're a superwoman and you must be a superwoman. Honestly, you can't be. There are some things you're good at. There's some things you're not good at. Be conscious about what is it that you're letting go of and focus on what is it that you can do well.
Yeah, and if I can also take a little bit on Gautam Shetty's question on just men, and if you're listening to us, right, this isn't about men or women. This is about, let's take a step back and think about any room, any meeting room. There are some people who are very vocal and always have something to say, and there are some people, sometimes women, but sometimes also men, who are also, shy and maybe introverted. That's a word that I don't use too often. And maybe they need a little bit of a nudge. So if you're in that room and you believe that there are a couple of people in the room who might need a little bit of a nudge, be that person. Just say, hey, I know whoever, like let's say Shivashri. I'm sorry, I can see you, so I'm taking your name. I'm sure you're not an introvert, Shivashri. But let's say Shivashri hasn't said anything in the last 20 minutes that we've been in the meeting, right? Just say, hey, Shivashri, you and I chatted over coffee. You had a great point. Do you want to say? This is not about putting somebody on a spot, but this is about allowing and giving somebody an opportunity who might be a little bit more shy. So I'm just saying, if you're a man or anybody sitting here and you feel like there are a few people who might need a little bit of a help, make opportunity for that, because that's really, really important. And that goes to every conversation that we have at the workplace.
Sure.
And sorry, can I also say the assertive, that word sometimes, I've never, and this is now you'll realize I'm really passionate about this. I've never seen a feedback form for a man saying this man is too assertive. I've never seen somebody say this man has too many opinions. However, I've seen feedback forms for women where we say, oh, that woman is really assertive or has too many opinions. So what we've become, unfortunately, as organizations, as society, is we've become very gender-based when we give feedback or when we label people. And if we can walk away from it and we define what good looks like for an organization or for leaders, and then give feedback based on what good looks like, not because you're a man or a woman, then I think we might be a little bit more equal when it comes to work. Smita, what do you think of that?
No, I agree. In fact, in a lot of organizations, the culture is defined in the way that it used to be, and therefore the culture tends to be a little more masculine. And it's very important for us to look at it from a much broader perspective. How do you define your roles? How do you define the expectations of these roles? How do you define your competencies of success? And is it neutral enough to enable different people to take a shot at it and be equally good? Because honestly, it's important to do it, because otherwise you are limiting yourself in terms of your talent pool, and you're limiting yourself in terms of the type of people who will come in, and you will end up with a lot of people who think and act and behave the same way, and whoever cares for groupthink, right? That's not what you want here. You want people with new ideas. Innovation is important, fresh thoughts are important, and therefore there's a good business case to ensure that you have a work culture and an environment with practices and policies that are reasonably neutral to enable different people to come in and to flourish as well.
Sure. Thanks, Smita and Shalini. So I think there are questions which are still coming in. So there is one question which states that what should be the compensation demand for a new mother who's coming back to the industry?
I would think that it would have to be based upon the capabilities and skills that you bring with you. I don't think it is about the new mother, or I would assume that the person is alluding to coming back to work after a break. But I wouldn't really look at it that way. I would look at it based upon what is it that the value that you bring to the table, and what is it that's the fair market price for that value. And I think that's really the point. It's not about looking at it as I'm coming in post maternity or after young mother, or whatever. Those are labels we put on ourselves. Those are the limitations we create for ourselves inside our own heads. We are defining ourselves with all these things. Now, that's a good definition to have, by the way. Yes, you're a young mother, you have a baby to take care of, so what? You also have a good job, you also have that MBA degree, you also have those amazing experiences at the workplace, and you've got all those recognition, accolades, so on and so forth. So there is another part of you as well. So bring your whole self to that interview and look at the value you create as an individual and as a professional overall. And then I don't think that's the way you define yourself in a very unidimensional way. Get holistic about the whole package. And then you would be able to, position yourself like that and ask for the right compensation, or whatever it is that, the value that you bring to the table.
And if I can add one line, don't apologize for taking a break. If you enter an interview and you're apologetic about the break you took, then it takes away all the great things that you took time to do. So walk in with confidence. You did the right thing by taking a break. It's okay. Come back and be proud of it. Talk about what you've learned through going through the experience of being a new mother. And then your question, if we can reframe that, what is the coming in salary, or what is the salary for X position? And it has nothing to do with you being a new mother. That's exactly what Smita said.
Thank you, Shalini. Thank you, Smita. Okay, we have the next question. How can pharma sector inclusive of women across level, which is still traditional and has a male-dominated leaders?
I think the pharma sector totally understands that diversity of thought is very important, because one of the most important things about this sector is about innovation. At the end of the day, there is a large part of the work that is about drug discovery and about making sure you have the next new thoughts on the table, and you're looking at science in a different way, and you're attracting the best of the talents and brains, right? And so it's obvious that you do need to ensure that you have a fairly inclusive work environment that is the same for everybody, and that enables different people to flourish. And so I actually think that it's no better or no worse than any other industry. But what I really like about pharma is that there is a huge purpose over here. And the purpose is about saving lives, and the purpose is about genuinely making a difference. And I think that's a huge draw for the best talent. And I think organizations are also realizing it. And if you go into actually understanding, how these organizations are modeled, and gender diversity, I think gender diversity is pretty good and getting better. And there are certain roles which are hugely women dominated, and there are other roles where we are still learning. But if you were to go on the internet and start searching the boards and the senior leadership teams of the the leading pharmaceutical companies, you will find women over there for sure.
Sure. Thanks, Smita. So, next question we have from Shivani. How can women shatter the mental inhibitions that they have, and how can we ensure that women does not leave jobs when there is an emergency at home which takes priority? Women's career is many a times seen as a secondary when compared to the men in the family.
I can say one thing over here, and I would say that you need to work on your family right up front. Um, Honestly, the fact is that, when you were studying and when you were being educated and when you did really well in college and school, I think the pride was equal for you as it was for your siblings who were male. I don't think your family was any less proud of your achievements. And somewhere you need to hold on to that and transition that into your work environment as well. Um, I totally recognize, and I'm not minimizing it for a moment, that there are perhaps in a more traditional setup, there are expectations of you, but nothing stops you from redefining those expectations at your home. And there's also nothing wrong in actually stepping in for a moment and looking after an emergency situation at your home. But the point is, at what cost? And what does that stand for? Is it that you are going to be the primary caregiver for 1 year because that's what's needed in your home and you're comfortable about it? To leave your job for doing that, or find a more flexible way of working for doing that. I think a lot of it has to do with the battle inside your head. If you feel that's the right thing to do, then go right ahead and do it. And if you feel that's not the right thing to do, then find another solution for your family. The question is addressing the problem. The question is not about you prioritizing one over the other. So reframe that problem, I would think.
Sure, Smita. Thank you. So, Shalini, any views on the same question?
I'm learning a lot from Smita already. Actually, I was thinking, now that we have answered what do we do with family, maybe also look at the company. Let's assume for a second you were in a job, you decided that you had an emergency. What do you do in your workplace that is accepting of you making a different decision? And there are many good companies that have a sabbatical, right? And I generally don't quote books, but when you read Lean In, it's always about, don't back away earlier than you really need to, because sometimes what happens is you in your head build up that, okay, this is coming and I have to quit, I don't have any other option. You're not even, like what I've done many times when I've had a challenge, and I'll go into something personal, but when I've had a challenge, is to take a step back and say, who can I talk to who will understand this and help me think through this? Probably the last thing on my mind is to quit. And I might have to do it, but let's have a conversation. I've had conversations with my bosses saying, hey, I'm going through, let's say I went through a divorce. So then let's talk about it. I went through a divorce. I started thinking that, hey, I'm a superwoman. I can handle this and I can handle stuff at work. I couldn't. I genuinely couldn't, but I assumed I could. So then at one point I realized I couldn't. So I sat my boss down and said, hey, listen, it's getting really hard and I need to take a step back. And I didn't expect this out of my boss at that time, but she actually said, hey, you know what? You're going through a life-changing moment and you could replace divorce with anything life-changing that might be happening to you. She said, I completely understand. How about you take a couple of months break, go figure that out, come back, because I would rather have you fully focused and happy and not have to worry about this than have you distracted here. So then I took some time off. I figured that out, came back rejuvenated. If I had assumed I wouldn't get that time, then I would have quit my job and things would have gone back. So what I'm saying is, we build it up so much that probably reality is not as bad as we build it up in our heads. So focus on your family, get help from them, tell them how important going back to this job is, figure out what else you can do personally, figure out an ecosystem within work that will support you, and then see. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I think it's important to give it a try.
Sure. Thank you so much, Shamini and Smita, for sharing real life examples with us. So, there is one other question from Archana, which states that long term relationship with the organization is currently considered as an incapability of you to find a job. So, please comment on it.
Okay, so I'm going to step back a little bit and I'm going to say, I think it's very important to figure out what is it that you want to do. And how do you define yourself and how do you define what you're happy about? You've just made a question about, if I stay long in a company, then people think that, you're incapable of finding another job. Is that how you define yourself and your happiness? Then, that's the question. That's the key question that you have to ask yourself. And it's interesting that I'm answering this question when I have spent years and years in every one of my company. In my current company, this is my 9th year. In my previous company, I was there for 9 years as well. So, I'm probably not the person to give that answer, but I'll tell you what I think about. And maybe it's the counterpoint to the people who think you should jump a job when you stay longer, it's because you don't have a job, or don't have an option. I think it's very important to understand what is the value that you create. And sometimes the value you create cannot be done in 30 days. And if you are really going after seriously big levels of change and value addition and value creation, you need to give yourself that time. Also, I think staying in an organization and building a career and staying in an organization, actually growing in an organization, is sometimes a little bit harder than throwing in your towel at the first time that you see there is adversary. Because I think a little bit of it is what we call resilience. And when you build resilience, you also build, you sort of open yourself up to these tough situations also, and you learn to work through those. And to me, those are really big values that you create. And I would think that staying in and finding your way through a problem and working through issues is actually a great way of growing your own personal capabilities and your own personal brand.
I agree. And if I can add, it's also about how you let's assume for a second that you stayed for a long time, you go into an interview and you're wondering if that's going to come up. It's about how you position your career in a company for that long makes it or breaks it after that conversation, right? If you go in feeling like, oh my God, I've stayed here, they're going to ask me, and how am I going to justify? Then you've lost it already, because in your head, you've built it up. Again, going back to that in your head situation, right? But to Smita's point, it's about, have you learned in the 9 years that you've been in an organization? How much have you? And this is not about getting promoted in the 9 years. This is not about moving jobs in that company. It's about how have you used that time that you've been in that company. And if your storytelling and your positioning when you go into an interview, any conversation can justify and show the growth you've had, then nobody really cares how long you've stayed there. It's about what you've learned and what you're bringing to the new job. And I, like Smita, I stayed for a long time in a company. It's about how open have I been and how open have I been with trends that's happening in the industry while I'm in a company makes a huge difference about how you position yourself out.
I totally agree. It's the value creation and the learnings.
Sure. Thank you so much, Smita. And one more questions that we have from Soumya. We have 10 minutes to go. One question is, how should women improve their understanding of financial aspect personally and professionally?
Smita, you go, because I want to learn also, because I'm so bad at this.
Oh my goodness. Now I'm probably getting that imposter syndrome happening here, because I don't think I'm particularly good at this one. But let me tell you what I do. I take, if you were to look at finances on its own or in the context of an organization, I think it's a very important capability and skill, because when you're leading a function, an HR function as well, you need to be really on top of your budgets and on top of your numbers, and you should really be financially savvy to understand where you invest and for what type of outcome. And I think that is absolutely critical skill. And it is the biggest differentiator, because if you do not know how to handle your budgets and you do not understand your numbers, then you will not be able to actually run the people function of any organization. So it's an absolutely top of the line skill set required. In my experience, you learn that actually on the job, while you're working, when you take up those projects, to also understand, what exactly goes into building up the project. I find a lot of people getting terribly excited about, creating a program without realizing what is the outcome of the program and what is the input into the program. And I think that's a very light way of looking at it. I think as a leader, you have to always justify on why is it you're doing what you're doing. Even a simple thing. Suppose you say, I want to bring, a mentoring program into the, an executive coaching program into the organization. Fine. So talk about, if you're going to go out and get a bunch of executive coaches who will cost you X amount of money, what is the kind of outcomes you're going for, and what is the difference it's going to make to the organization? What is the bottom line difference it's going to make, frankly, to the business? So you have to learn to articulate all the outcomes of HR into financials, because finally that's very, very important. It's a very key skill, and you have to learn to think in numbers even when you're thinking of HR in terms of programs and projects. So to me, that's absolutely the critical thing, and that's something that I absolutely focus upon. And I would say, pick it up on the job, take a course if you'd like to. Force yourself to think like that, because I think we get terribly excited about creating lovely programs without realizing, what is the investment going into it, and therefore what is the outcome that's going to come out of it. And when you're actually creating value or creating this as a story for your business leaders, what is it that they are looking for? What is that point? The big selling point for you. So I think that's absolutely a very, very important capability. And more than once, people who have worked with me will know that I will keep talking about know the financials of what is that you're proposing, know the outcome, both in HR terms and in financial terms. Learn it from the finance team in your own organization. They are big mentors to you if you would like to go to them and ask these questions.
Yeah. And Smita, if I can, personal example is that, I struggle with this, but I also know how important, to your point, it is to my job. So there are a couple of practical things that I've done. When an email comes which has a lot of financial information, easiest is to ignore it or file it away and say, I'll do it later, and you never come to the later. But what I have started doing is I have this buddy who's on the finance team. I send it to him and then say, hey, simplify this for me. Tell me the top 3 things I need to know when I read this. So the more I ask these questions, nowadays they send this email, they send me a separate note on the side saying, hey, here are the top 3 things to look at, right? Again, I've delegated. That's my skill. You can realize that now. But I have all of these people around me who've realized, because I asked for help and I said, I don't understand this, simplify it for me. And now there are so many things that come up which simplifies it. Now I understand what needs to be done with that.
Sure, Smita. Thank you, Smita and Shalini. I think we just have 8 more minutes to go, so we can take up one last question.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Mr.
I think I was on mute. I'm sorry. We have just 7 more minutes, so we can take one last question. So again, I see it from Gautam Shetty. So men can also be really bad at managing finances, but I really think the best way is to learn or reach out to the expert for support. Okay, sorry, that was a comment.
I would agree.
So
I would agree. Absolutely.
Yep. Yes.
Learn from experts, go for a program, make friends in the finance team in your organization, spend time with them, discuss business, discuss finances, discuss outcomes. Don't look at it only from an HR perspective. Look at it from an enterprise perspective. Wear the hat of your full organization and then look at it, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Change your thinking pattern completely.
Yeah. And Shivashri, maybe there is a question, but one of the things that Smita and I have touched upon all along is don't label yourself. Like many times you think, oh, women are bad drivers, women can't do math. maybe there is truth to it, but probably you might not be an exception to that. So don't fall into the stereotype. Figure out how you want to. If that's something of interest to you, if you've gotten feedback about something like this, make an effort, because it isn't, like Gautam said, it isn't about the gender. It's about, there are some things we're good at, some things we're not. I'm not falling into a label. I'm going to figure out who I am and what I'm great at, and I'm going to figure that out and make a plan based on that, not based on some book that said women are from Venus, something, whatever.
Yeah, sure, Shalini. Thank you so much, Smita and Shalini, for a very, very interesting session. And personally, I learned many things from you, starting from, having clear things on mind. So a couple of key points I would say is just stay focused and do things which you are passionate and genuinely happy about. If you think taking a break at certain point of your life stage, it's totally fine. Don't get bogged out by external social comments. It's always something which you have to be passionate about and focused in the career that you are choosing in, and I'm sure you will rock it. So one last question to Smita and Shalini, while we talk a lot about work-life balance. This is, again, I know it's a very basic question, but what are some of the things that you do at, at your personal level to keep yourself, calm, composed, mindful? Because I'm sure at your position, you would be having hundreds and multiple things to handle, multiple roles to handle. So what are some of the things that you do to keep yourself focused?
I actually don't look at it in terms of a work-life balance. I think it's more about having an integrated life with work and family and personal things, and also your own personal me time. So things that make you happy and excited. I think it's important to focus on that as well. Also, I think it's very important to realize that there is no one magic mantra about the whole thing. It's more about what's important at that point of time, or what's important for that day, or that hour sometimes, frankly. And that's how you organize yourself out. You could be at the most important meeting of your life, and there could be an accident in your family, and then you have to dump everything and run. And I think everybody understands that. These things have happened to every one of us. At least it's happened to me. On more than one occasion, I have been pulled by an emergency on either other work front or personal front, and you've had to take choices and do what you have to do. It's important to make sure that everybody is with you on this journey. And I think I mentioned that earlier, that my family is my biggest cheerleader. And that's really important, because they recognize what's happening, and they totally understand when you have to jump out of something that's with them to go and do something for the work, or even vice versa, where people in the office also always understand. At least I have been blessed in that sense. So I've always had that understanding with everybody. In terms of how do I keep my balance, for me, honestly, it's about finding my own personal time. I do different things. I read. I'm a huge one on reading stuff, whether it's the news, whether it's latest happenings anywhere, whether it's books, just fiction, lots and lots of fiction. I enjoy that, or researching stuff that catches my eye sometimes, and then I spend hours trying to read about it because I just want to learn more about the subject. So these are things I do for myself. There is, so it's important to keep that balance, and also to understand that you do need your own personal time as well, because sometimes you don't nurture yourself, and you're so busy nurturing everyone else around you, you forget the fact that if you are not going to be a happy person, you're not going to be a happy person at home, neither are you going to be a happy person at work. And it's not going to get you the results you want. So it's worth the investment in yourself as well.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, integration. I also think we make time for what is important. Like Smita said, right? Like, let's assume you have a really busy day, but it's your best friend's wedding or your sister's wedding or something, right? And you would make time for it. So why not make time for yourself? Some of the things I personally do is, one, I don't apologize if I left work at 5:30 or 4 o'clock, depending on what's happening in my life. And I never apologize, which means if I did it, then it's okay for teams who are working with me to do it, because, that's the tone you're setting as a leader. The second thing I do is, because I'm disciplined at work and sometimes guided by my calendar, I also have a personal calendar on the same calendar that I have my work stuff on, which, I work out I meditate, I go on travels. All of that is on my calendar, which means is as important as a meeting that I might have with my CEO. So what I'm saying is there is a need for you to understand you're important and what you do for yourself is important. There is a need to have a little bit of a structure and discipline, which is what has worked for me. I'm sure people are different. And thirdly, also know that every single thing that you do outside of work makes you better at work. You travel, you're fresh, you come back, you're awesome. You have a hobby, you come back, you have a different perspective. So if you're somebody who thinks work is important, then know that everything you do makes you better at work too. So that's another way of thinking about it. Back to you, Sivashree.
Thank you so much, Smita and Shalini. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on this. So let's have a quick chapter updates and then we'll close the meeting. Just give me a moment, I'll share my screen. I hope all of you can see my screen.
Yep.
Yeah, it's visible.
Thank you. Quick update on our Bangalore chapter. As you know, Bangalore chapter has over 2,500 members, and we have all the initiatives and programs for professionals, academia, and students. So some unique and interesting initiatives of Bangalore chapters, most of you would have attended to. We have Thought Leadership, which is monthly. Currently, we are doing this virtually after the COVID situation happened. Before that, we used to, physically meet for the Thought Leadership meet every month. And we also have learning programs. We have a HR Showcase, which is our unique trade style event to showcase all the best practices. Generally, this happens in the month of December year end, so you can watch out for 2020, 2021 as well. And we have Confluence for Academia Summer Internship Mela and student development programs. Also, we do have webinars and tweet chats. And recently, from last year, we have included the NHRD live programs as well, wherein we bring in speakers to talk on the topic, which is very relevant to our HR community. So also, as you one other interesting fact is Bangalore chapter has been awarded as the best chapter for 3 consecutive years. It is 2014, 15, 16, again in the year 2018. And our membership, overall, we have 13,000 plus members across 30 chapters. Bangalore has over 2,500 plus members, and the membership is valid across all the 30 chapters. So if you have any annual silver gold membership, it can be upgraded to lifetime membership by paying the difference amount before it expires, and it is possible for the annual institutional membership as well. Currently, there is a 20% offer. If you want to register in our membership, you can please go ahead and do it, because this offer is valid till 31st of March. So please go ahead and sign up for our annual membership, and I'm sure you will not regret later. I am part of NHRD Young Advisory Board myself, and this one year with NHRD have been an amazing year with a lot of learning and direct networking with leaders. So please feel free to join our membership, and if you want to know more details to our membership, you can also write to membership@nhrd.bangalore.com. And our upcoming again, this is something which I just spoke about, the 20% discount on our membership fees. So this is something which is valid till 31st of March. And we have an upcoming program. Again, as mentioned, it's a virtual thought leadership meet, which is happening on March 21st. That is 25th March 2021, 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. We have Himanshu, who will be talking on what is my why and discover my purpose. So thank you. And again, thank you all so much for joining our live session. I'm sure all of you enjoyed, and there was a lot of interesting lessons from Smita and Shalini. And once again, thank you so much, Smita and Shalini, for accepting our invite and being a part of panel. And also, I would like to thank Nikita, Akila, and Mitch, who have worked in the background to make this program successful. Thank you all so much, and have a great evening ahead.
Thank you so much, Sivashree, and everybody at NHRD. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thanks for the amazing questions, audience. We loved it, and we learned so much.